I just couldn't believe my eyes when I read this. And I'm like, Ohio again, man. It's just like, are you kidding me? Every time I turn around, there's another Ohio story. And at this point, I got to think that Ohio just don't like children. Ohio just don't like babies, man. So this story, I want y'all to hear the details. These two individuals, and matter of fact, this lady right here, this alleged lady, has a very unique circumstance around her name. So we'll get to that here in just a second. Let me give you guys the fair usage about my content. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And my source for this story is WLWT.com. So thank you for the article. Y'all can look that up. So Ohio was taking yet another L. Behind closed doors and inside a house on Madison Park Drive in Batavia, prosecutors say that 5 special needs children were held in a dungeon-like room. A dungeon. These were adopted children. 5 special needs. Can we get a hashtag babies for benefits? Yes, this is embarrassing at this point. Ohio again. Special needs children, hashtag babies for benefits. That means that these people didn't give a crap about these children. And matter of fact, I need to warn you about the details. Where is my disclaimer? Because these details are probably going to bother you a bit. Content warning. The following video contains material that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences. That is your forewarning if you need to exit the video because the details are going to bother you. But I want y'all to remember that this is what they did to these little kids. So at least pay some respect to the kids and listen to the details. Their adoptive parents, Matthew and Charles Edmondson, are accused of torturing them. Let me say those names again. Matthew and Charles. Let me say those names again. Matthew and Charles. The society we live in today makes you wonder, is that really this woman's name, Matthew? I've never heard of a woman by the name of Matthew. Maybe that's a common thing. Or could this be that this man is in a relationship with a man that transitioned into being a woman, and maybe he didn't know that his wife is actually Matthew? Just saying, in this world, you just don't know. And that's the part that bothers me, because I think that everybody deserves a right to know. Okay? Adoptive parents, Matthew, female, allegedly, and Charles Edmondson are accused of torturing them. Withholding food to the point of starvation, withholding water, withholding clothing. That sounds sexual, says Christina DeTillo. I added it sounds sexual. That's the part I ad-libbed that part. Claremont County Assistant Prosecutor. These children were at the point where they were taking food out of the trash because of the starvation that they were experiencing. When the boys were punished, they were forced to stand for prolonged periods of time with their arms raised. The Edmondsons were previously charged with 5 felonies. Due to media coverage, prosecutors say that witnesses have been calling all day, every day to tell stories of how the children were mistreated. That resulted in 26 additional charges of endangering children. So it sounds like the people finally said something and they're getting more charges, more justice, which is a good thing. This resulted in 26 additional charges of endangering children and felonious assault for each parent. It also resulted in the arrest of Matthew Edmondson's adult child, Bailey Edmondson, which I don't have the picture, but maybe we can get that at a later point. If I do get it, I'll post it in the thumbnail. I'll do that. The 20-year-old is accused of having a hand in the cruel discipline. Assistant Clermont County Prosecutor Nick Horton rattled off some of the abuse in court. Verbal abuse, withholding food and water as punishment, children forced to sit in their own feces, sleep on the floor, cold floor with no blankets, no pillows, forced to take cold showers when they have an accident. Attorneys for both Matthew and Bailey Edmondson entered not guilty pleas on their behalf during their arraignment on Wednesday. Bailey Edmondson's bond was set at $500,000, $500,000. Matthew Edmondson, the alleged woman, her alleged bail was set at $1 million. Charles Chuck Edmondson has not been in court yet for this case because he is currently in prison serving a 3-year sentence for sex crimes involving a 6th adopted son. Sex crimes. Now, they didn't say this in this article. Let me finish. Prosecutors say that videos of the abuse involving the 5 boys were discovered during the sexual battery investigation. So I'm assuming they either had those videos for their own sick, perverted pleasure, or they might have been uploading this to some website or selling it for profit. Let me also say this. Based on oh, you know what? I think I read this in this other document. That's why I had both of them pulled up. Give me a second here. Let me find it. In 2022, Clermont County Sheriff's Office deputies started investigating Charles Edmondson, on the right-hand side of the screen, for engaging in sexual relations with one of the adopted children. Charles Edmondson was convicted in that case and is serving time behind bars. Let me see if I can find it. According to the prosecutor's office, detectives found evidence of abuse on Charles Edmondson's phone, so he recorded it on his cell phone. The most disturbing video of all was the one of all 5 boys, prosecutors explained. All these naked, tiny little malnourished boys, because they would lose food all the time, huddled up like little puppies on the cold floor of this basement. Prosecutors say that the children were in and out of the hospital for bruising, bleach burns, and potential internal bleeding, all of which were explained away by Charles and his partner, Matthew. That's the part that I brought. That's why I brought up both documents, because otherwise y'all would not have known that. So again, let me give you guys the fair usage. Just know, maybe this is y'all first time hearing this. I don't believe that's a woman. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. You guys would do me a favor and please click that thumbs up. Don't be offended by what I say. Be offended at what they're doing to innocent children with special needs. They have special needs, man, and they're adopting these children and abusing them and doing sexual stuff is absolutely just despicable. And I think that deserves a life sentence. But watch these news videos, pray for those kids that they can survive and make a recovery.
Now, 2 people are facing charges accused of torturing and abusing their 5 adopted children who have special needs. Jessica Schmidt is at the alert desk with what investigators are telling us about this case.
So 49-year-old Matthew Robert Edmondson, the victim's adoptive mother, and 63-year-old Charles Robert Edmondson, their adoptive father, well, they're both facing up to 18 years in prison if convicted of child endangering. A Claremont County grand jury indicted them both on 5 counts each. Prosecutors say the married couple took in the 5 victims as foster children and later adopted them. They tell us the boys have been in and out of the hospital for things like bruising, bleach burns, and possible internal bleeding. Prosecutors tell us sheriff's office detectives and children's services workers discovered evidence of that abuse on Charles's cell phone in April while they were investigating him in a different case. They say they found videos showing the couple treating the children, who again have special needs and medical issues, worse than prisoners of war in their own home. In a statement, the Claremont County prosecutor told us in part, quote, "The videos of these undernourished and naked children huddled up in a locked room in the basement on the stone-cold basement floor like a pile of puppies trying to stay together to keep warm are nothing short of gut-wrenching." Also telling us, quote, "These two are unfit to be parents, and I'm grateful to those who have worked tirelessly to make sure they will not be." Investigators say the 5 children, the 5 victims, were removed from the home in February. Now, I mentioned that Charles was investigated in another case, also in Claremont County. We're told he was indicted for sexual battery in October of last year, later convicted of gross sexual imposition and sentenced to 3 years in prison in March. He is still in prison right now. At the Alert Desk, Jessica Schmidt, Fox 19 Now.
We're continuing our coverage on a child abuse case out of Claremont County. A Batavia Township couple was charged with multiple felony counts, accused of torturing their 5 adopted sons. One of the defendants made their first court appearance this morning. Brenda Ordonez has been following the story and is live with what happened during today's arraignment. Brenda.
You know what? And the fact that, I think that actually makes sense that these are probably 2 men. These are probably 2 men, which actually would make sense because the guy on the right-hand side of the screen, Charles or Chuck, whatever his name is currently doing prison time for engaging in sexual activity with the 6th special needs or the 6th child, boy, all boys apparently. And I've talked about the sexual nature of gay men. I've talked about this before. People have tried to debate me about this. Some of my biggest stories on my channel have been about the LGBTQ. Okay? And I said these 2 things. Women and women relationships, when it comes to the negative, I'm sure there are probably some positive things. It's not my job to speak on positive. I'm speaking about children, so I'm going to talk about the things that are affecting children in a negative way. That's my preface, okay? Now, when it comes to women and women relationships, the negative, they have a high propensity for domestic violence. When it comes to men and men relationships, hence this situation, which I believe that might be 2 men, hence the name, they have a high propensity for sexual deviance. Gay men in general, hashtag not all, the way that they behave and the way that their culture is set up, have a high propensity for sexual deviance. Men get with other men solely for sexual purposes more times than none. Women on women relationships get with each other more times than none for emotional support. That's why opposites attract. That's why when you put those 2 things that shouldn't be together in nature, naturally, and you put them together, that's why they clash the way that they do. That's why with the female portion, they end up fighting so much because they ain't supposed to be together naturally. When you get these men together, they end up doing the most disgusting, nasty, most filthy sexual stuff that you could possibly think of. Doesn't that seem like that fits their character profile? So it seems that maybe I'm not just making up stuff, and it seems that this pattern that they're following makes a hell of a lot of sense when I explain it that way. I believe that those are two men, not a man and a woman, and the woman just happens to have a name by the name of Matthew, unless he just didn't know. But I'm led to believe that he probably did know. All right, now let's keep going.
Yeah, Megan, according...
Y'all going to debunk something, debunk exactly what I said. I hate when people just, yous don't know what you's talking about, Just Jay. Why is you hating on the LGTB? You must want to be like them. Instead of breaking down what I said and telling me where it's not true. Give something to counter those points, but they don't.
To prosecutors, all 5 children under the care of Matthew and Charles Edmondson have high levels of special needs ranging from autism to Fragile X, a cognitive and behavioral syndrome. According to prosecutors in court today, they did confirm that the children were removed from the home in February and are now back in foster care. Now, they did detail some of the horrific incidents that happened in that home, and we want to warn you that some of the contents may be disturbing.
We have a great deal of evidence against them now, finally.
In 2022, Clermont County deputies began investigating Charles Edmondson for engaging in sexual relations with one of his adult adopted sons, who, according to court records, was deemed incompetent to care for himself. Charles was convicted in this case and is serving time behind bars. Prosecutors say through that investigation, they found more evidence of abuse toward other adopted children in the home.
These 5 little boys were constantly in the house naked, and they were held in this, basically, it's mostly, I would consider it a dungeon. It had a metal bunk bed. Sometimes there was no mattress. They didn't have blankets. If they had blankets, they weren't allowed to touch the blankets. They couldn't sit on the mattress. They were allowed to sit in their feces because they weren't allowed to leave the room for the bathroom.
Prosecutors say the children came to the Edmondson home as foster kids, but were later adopted by the couple. Prosecutors say this abuse was captured on Charles's cell phone.
The most disturbing video, most disturbing to all, was the one of all 5 boys, all these naked little tiny malnourished boys, because they would lose food all the time, huddled up like puppies on the cold floor of this basement room.
Prosecutors say the children were in and out of the hospital for bruising, bleach burns, and potential internal bleeding. They say an excuse for these injuries were always given by Charles and his partner Matthew. The pair each now face 5 felony counts of child endangering.
After that discussion, we intend on entering a not guilty plea.
Matthew appeared in court on Wednesday, where she was handed a $500,000 bond and a no-contact order from the judge.
If she gets any access to them, they will stop talking, they will recant, and she will influence them greatly.
Prosecutors say the children are out of the home and in foster care, which prosecutors say have helped them talk about the nightmares at home.
But finally, what we do have is kids starting to talk because they're away from mom and dad.
Now, again, Matthew is scheduled to be back in court for her pretrial hearing on July 10th. Charles is currently serving a 3-year sentence at the Noble Correctional Institution in Caldwell. He is expected to be transported back here to Clermont County for his arraignment on these additional charges. Of course, we're going to continue to update this story and update you with the latest as we learn more. For now, outside of the Clermont County Common Police Court, I'm Brenna Ordonez, Fox 19 Now.
To think that on the surface it was so normal, and the more you dig, it just doesn't feel right.
Tonight at 10, we are hearing from some neighbors after a Clermont County couple is accused of torturing and abusing their 5 adopted children who have special needs. Thanks for joining us at 10. I'm Tricia Mackey.
And I'm Rob Williams. Chancellor Wynn joins us live in Batavia after speaking with neighbors about those allegations.
So according to the Clermont County Prosecutor's Office, a detective here at the Sheriff's Office actually found videos that allegedly show, quote, worse than prisoners of war. That's the type of abuse that the Prosecutor's Office is saying is alleged against this couple in Clermont County. So tonight we went and spoke to neighbors to see if they had any insight into these allegations of abuse.
Video footage, there's nothing you can say about it at this point. Like, you can't deny it, you can't run from it. Like, it's here, it's in our face.
That's one woman's reaction to hearing the news that her neighbors, 49-year-old Matthew Robert Edmondson and a 63-year-old Charles Robert Edmondson, are facing charges, accused of abusing their 5 adopted children who have special needs. The couple has now been indicted on 5 counts of endangering children.
They were a regular family. The kids went to school, the husband went to work, the mom took care of the kids.
According to the Clermont County County Prosecutor's Office, Sheriff's Office detectives, and Child Protective Service workers discovered evidence of the abuse on Charles, the adoptive father's, cell phone in April. They say they made the discovery while investigating him for engaging in sexual relations with a different child. Charles was convicted in that case and is currently serving 3 years in prison.
The only impression I have of him is the angry man.
So that's all he got for engaging in sexual behavior with a child? Really? That should have got him a life sentence on top of this. Boy, they got that wrong. Ohio usually gets it wrong.
Who walked around in his underwear.
Clermont County Prosecutor Mark Tecolve released a statement about the videos, which reads in part, quote, "The videos of these undernourished and naked children huddled up in a locked room in the basement on the stone-cold basement floor like a pile of puppies trying to stay together to keep warm are nothing short of gut-wrenching." He says the children have been in and out of the hospital for bruising, bleach burns, and potentially internal bleeding. The neighbor
What I don't understand is how could they be in and out of the hospital? This man was able to explain that away and got away with it. How? That makes no sense at all. Hospital staff failed. I just think that if you ask me, it just seems like an Ohio thing. It just seems like the state of Ohio gets it wrong more times than none. It's just Ohio. That's the way Ohio is.
spoke with tells me she even recalls Children's Services visiting the Edmondson's home multiple times.
3 or 4 of them at a time, different specialists, different doctors, different people just always here to check on those children. So we never questioned it any further.
While Charles is behind bars, an arrest warrant has been issued for the children's adoptive mother, Matthew. If convicted, they're both facing up to 18 years in prison.
We've lived here 10 years and I've never had a conversation with the man. It's just, I've talked to Matt multiple times. I know her as a person, but I can't talk about Chuck because he kept himself very secluded.
According to the prosecutor's office, the 5 boys who were allegedly abused were born with many medical issues, and instead of being...
I have a very stupid question. I have a very, 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 very stupid question. Y'all remember the R. Kelly case? And he allegedly had sex dungeons, and even though, from what I understand, those people were there on their own volition and that they were of age, I don't think that they were underage. I know that has a propensity for underage people, but I don't know that the people who went on trial were underage or he was dealing with them underage at the time. That's here nor there. Y'all remember how they threw the book at him, right? How much time did he get in prison? There's a point that I'm making to this. How much time in prison did R. Kelly get? 20 years. Prison term for child sex abuse. Well, maybe he did deal with children. Got 20 years. My question is this. They purposefully adopted little bitty tiny children. Okay? Little bitty tiny children. They have videos of this, evidence of this, and the fool on the right-hand side of the screen is currently in jail for having sex with a 6th boy. $30 years? Why doesn't that get you a life sentence? I looked that up because I was curious to know how much prison time he got, because I'm thinking like what they did was like a lot worse, a whole lot worse. So they should get double and triple the time. Here's the other comparison I was going to make. What if these were 2 people, 2 individuals, we're going to assume a man and a woman, I guess. Let's just say if they did this to a grown woman and it's just one woman, and they had her locked in a basement, had her naked all the time, make her sleeping on the floor, sleeping in her feces, starving her, and she's huddled up on the floor like a puppy. How much time in prison would they get for kidnapping a grown woman? Wouldn't that get you a life sentence? Wouldn't that get you more than 20 years? 30, maybe 40 years? My point is that they should get quite a bit more in this situation, because I'm thinking 50 years, maybe life. Why should they ever get an opportunity to even think that they might be able to get out of prison? Let me look at their ages. I don't know if it gave their age or not, but let's see. The alleged woman is 49 years old, so that would be, she'd be out by 70, and he'd be out by 83. That means that they'd be old getting out, and I don't think that their mentality would change. I don't think that people who sexually offend children and abuse children like this, that mentality cannot be rehabilitated.
Properly nurtured and cared for, they were, quote, traumatized, neglected, and abused.
I hope the best for these kids. They're great little kids. I don't know who's truly affected by all of this. They've already been through enough before they've ever made it to this house. So to find out that they had to go through even more once they got here, it just breaks your heart.
People like this cannot be rehabilitated. That's why I believe that they need a life sentence. They should never have an opportunity to get out and offend again, or adopt again, or abuse any other children. Keep those special needs children in your prayers, all 6 of them. Thank you guys so much for listening to this story. And Ohio absolutely has to do better. Just terrible story after terrible story. Thank y'all for listening. Leave a comment in the comment section. Please only debate or counter what I've said. Don't just be in your feelings and just say, I didn't like what you said, Jay. I don't want to hear that. Let's have some intelligent conversations, okay? Thank you.